Welcome back to the DG Podcast. This is episode 95, part B. I have Rhett here with me. What have you been doing recently? I.e. since the last podcast.
Yeah, since the 2-3 days.
Yeah.
That's what's so goofy about doing like a recap. Just Easter.
Yeah.
Lindsay came over and we hung out a lot for Easter.
Got way too much candy.
I didn't. I should have, but I didn't. Lindsay
I'm talking about me.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
That's unfortunate. You should send it all to me. That should actually be like your threat if the kids don't act right. Just be like,
I know. I'm sending your candy to Rhett.
And I'll show up and be like, it'll be like the Easter, Grinch or whatever.
Right.
Like, I'm taking your candy.
See, the thing is, here in Smithfield, they do this thing where they have a big Easter egg hunt down at Mac Park for the kids.
Right.
And it's free. You just show up and grab candy.
Oh, okay.
And then the Lee's Marketplace, both here and in Logan. We didn't go to the Logan one, but my wife took the kids down to the Lee's Marketplace, and they always do a little trail through the store, and they give the kids more candy.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so for free, you just walk through the store. They're hoping the parents, I guess, will buy stuff. Actually, it's kind of funny. I know one of the managers over there, and I was talking to him about it because they do these customer appreciation things where they give away free stuff and they give all free samples and like this Easter thing with the kids. And they're like, we don't make any money on this. They just, but the thing is that because they do it, people feel loyalty towards them and so shop there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's why they do promos.
Oh, yeah. And so
I have a depressing story I could share about a promo, but go ahead.
Well, my kids always get way too much candy at those things, and then my wife and I always give them an Easter basket that's full of candy too, so they're going to be like hopped up on sugar for the rest of the year.
Nice.
Anyway, go ahead. About a promo?
Well, before I get into that, I played a lot of Bloodborne.
Right. You liking that?
Yes. Yes, I do. It's very good. Very fleshed out. Combat system is interesting. I'm not used to the whole setup and how they do things.
Well, I remembered you telling me that there's no shielding.
No.
And so you just have to roll out of the way or dodge the attacks?
Yeah, the dodging stuff in this game is really well done. And a lot of what the game is based around... Actually, let's have that as my topic. But okay. I played Bloodborne. Me and Lindsay hung out. She actually got me a little Easter basket with my favorite candy in it. Which is her going out of her way to make an effort.
All right.
Yeah, and we just hung out all weekend and watched some stuff. And we've been selling some of her junk on eBay. Well, not junk, but like old school books and
right,
like comic books and stuff. So we spent a bunch of time posting those things. I did some streaming of Bloodborne.
Cool.
Nobody watched it, but I did some streaming. Mainly because I'm sort of figuring out the setup so that the audio works fine and everybody can hear me and that sort of thing.
Right.
But yeah, good Easter. Spent some time just hanging out.
Cool. I played some more of the DLC from Borderlands. I finally got to the end boss. So far I haven't been able to beat him. I've leveled up like 3 times just trying to kill the guy.
Really?
Well, they gave him it. One of the guys that I when I looked up online after it took me so long to just knock him down at all, I looked up some stuff about him online. Evidently, a lot of people have been equating him to a raid boss. What he does is he
like he's built for a group as opposed to an individual.
Yeah. What they do is you go into the last arena where you're going to fight the boss, and he reconfigures himself because he's this little claptrap unit, and he reconfigures himself, and he's this huge mecha. And then you kill him. And then he reconfigures himself again into the Heliostin. And so he's flying around above you, bombarding you with turrets, and periodically he'll do a moonshot. And that's when you get ads. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, he fires the Helios laser at you. And the thing is, I was playing with Athena, and Athena has a shield that absorbs incoming damage, and then she'll throw it back out and it'll explode with that absorbed energy. She can't absorb the energy fast enough from the laser. It just kills you. I can hear it start absorbing the energy, the incoming damage, but it just spills over.
It's just outracing her ability to absorb it. That's
the
funny.
thing is that...
Like, have you ever had that problem before?
I mean, there are a couple raid bosses in Borderlands that I haven't been able to defeat because they're built as raid bosses. But this is the first time that I've gone on a solo mission that I haven't been able to figure out how to beat the boss.
Interesting.
Like with Borderlands 2, that Tiny Tina's, whatever that DLC, I forget what it's called, where you're playing Bunkers and Badasses, the role-playing game. That has a raid boss where there's 4 dragons, and those guys will toast you if you don't have a group to back you up. And so they've done that so that they could get people to go and do it as a group. But the main storyline, I've never had a problem defeating one of the bosses just by myself. But this time, the thing is he's just got so many hit points. He's got a shield, and then he's just got tons of hit points.
Did we get an email from Chance?
Let's see.
Well, I believe we will, because he asked me when we were sending it, and I told him we'd read it out. Is your the last time you read his email, you butchered it so bad, so maybe we should give him a little bit more time?
Maybe.
Man, he wasn't happy.
Oh yeah, we do have an email from him.
Okay, just as a reminder, whenever you want to do that.
Well, I don't know. Thing is, I guess we could save it and try to do both.
No, we'll throw it in on B.
Well, he says, go ahead and do the intro music.
And now it's time for the Distracted Gamers podcast listener emails, where Dr. Jason will paraphrase, eviscerate, and with surgical precision, remove all salient points from your feedback, leaving you sounding like a barely literate baboon.
And then we'll go into his email. He says, "What's up, you two knobs and Lindsay?"
Thank you.
He then swears a bunch and says that now that he's gotten it out of his system, he needs to explain why it was necessary. Evidently, let's see. I never said I was playing Justice League Heroes or Superman Shadow of Apocalypse. I only said I bought them. Never said played. Oh boy. Whatever.
I try to play games I buy.
I know.
But semantics, I suppose. Maybe that's what he was pissed off
maybe.
about.
It sounds like it.
You're misquoting me.
Because
I didn't play a game you said I did.
Well, I figured that he put it in there because he was playing them or going to play them, so... Anyway, he figures that you've been playing Bloodborne, and
I have been. I've seen him online too. I'll see him play Dark Souls sometimes, as well as he watches Netflix, or I assume his wife watches Netflix.
Well, he says that evidently because you now have joined the millions of PS owners, it does make you a douche.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I was hoping I was. But now that I've got it confirmed, I've tipped the scale, made it to the douche status.
Right. He compares Dark Souls, though. It's kind of funny what he says. It's like Tolkien with impossible boss fights.
I plan on talking about Dark Souls. I'll address your concerns, Chance.
Yeah, and he's like, as I told you, as he told Reddy Poo, he says, He died several times
Thank
in the
you.
first few minutes at the hands of the first big bad. Everybody does.
In Dark Souls 2, when you die for the first time, you get an achievement that's called This is Dark Souls.
Of course you do.
Literally, the first time you die, it's This is Dark Souls. Like, I told Chance, expect you're gonna die. It's not the fact that you're gonna die, it's the fact that you need to take the dying and learn from how you died and figure out a better way to go through it. It's literally based off skill, but it's also trial and error.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, he picked up, evidently, a bunch of PS3 sports titles. An original Xbox game, he picked up Dark Angel.
You can probably get them sports titles for crazy cheap.
And he says he picked up the Wii Motion Plus so that he can play Skywards and Red Steel 2.
Nice.
And then he says, I started this email several days ago. Since then, I've added Killer is Dead, Conan Dark Star 1, all for 360, and Looney Tunes Space Race for PS2.
Killer is Dead is a good game.
Yeah, I've never even heard of that one. He wants us to get on the Retro VGS people and get...
Yeah, he wants an interview. Killer is Dead, I think, is made by Swery. That's the actual guy.
And then he's hoping that you'll get on the Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks soon.
Yeah, I chatted to them. They are very crammed up with guest stars. They really like to get people, friends of theirs, on the podcast as frequently as they can. And I brought it up with him because he had offered in the past, and I didn't know about it because Jason got that
that's one of the things.
He's like, I should have capitalized on that. And I was like, yeah, you should have.
It came in, it did, and I dropped the ball on it. It's my fault. It came in, and I always meant to send him a reply and say, yeah, that sounds great. When do you want to do it?
Yeah, because he's like, you could come on ours, or I can come on yours, or... I was like, oh, well, maybe we should have capitalized on that months ago. Anyway, I told him I'd be willing to come on, and he says sometime next month. But he frequently has, him and his wife, frequently have guest stars on. So it's not uncommon.
So he revealed that to his wife's parents that they're going to have a kid. I wonder if he's told his son. He doesn't say right here, but...
I don't know how his son would react.
Evidently, they were really excited.
Didn't his son already have some sort of reaction?
It was use a condom.
Oh yeah.
But the thing is that it's a little late for that at this point.
You're going to be another disappointment for your kid. Yeah.
He said that they hugged us and then we ate barbecue, which is awesome. Evidently, he says his family kind of sucks. Populated by drunks, perverts, and other assorted miscreants, which is all him, but, you know.
Yeah.
No, I just meant that's...
he's
just describing himself. The rest could be fine, but... But the thing is he's like, more grateful to marry into a family as awesome as my wife, so evidently he really, married up in this case. Yeah, so, let's see, comic book movies... Casting. Oh, this is where we talk about the casting. Evidently, this is in response to the list that we went through. Brief discussion about it with his wife. They showed a picture of Anna Paquin as Rogue, and I made a disgusted face. My wife asked why, and I, stupid cloud that I am, said that Rogue is super hot, and Anna Paquin is a solid 5 on a good day. Never tell you're pregnant if another woman is hot, even if she's fictional.
No. Well, first of all, I could tell you that a lot of women like
Yes, they do.
Paquin, so
which
it's
is
a mistake to. It's a mistake
She's
to
just
go
not
after
that
her.
good.
I don't think Lindsay cares for her very much, but it's a common thing that women like.
One of Lindsay's favorites is Rogue. And so I think from coming from Lindsay's perspective, it's Anna Paquin just failed at nailing the role. Which, yeah.
Oh, Anna Paquin.
Julian McMahon as Dr. Doom. Let's see, other castings. Halle Berry as Storm, Jessica Alba as the Invisible Woman. Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane.
She was terrible.
pretty, but she was terrible. Yeah. Yeah.
As a Mary Jane, yeah. As
eye candy.
I'm attractive.
Yeah.
She pulled off that.
Uh-huh.
Congratulations.
And then, let's see, what was kind of funny, in Spider-Man, Spider-Man 3, that was the one where he went all emo, right? Okay, so Spider-Man 3, he goes all emo, and they finally introduced Gwen Stacy. Briefly. The funny thing about it is...
Imagine the excitement that woman had of potentially being in multiple movies and having a bigger role.
I know.
And then that being taken away from her by a terrible movie.
So anyway, the two actresses who played them, Kirsten Dunst is a blonde, but she went redhead for the movie role, right? The girl who played Gwen Stacy is a natural redhead and went blonde for the role.
And went blonde.
Yeah. Let's see. He even gets, Kirsten Dunst, come on. Mary Jane is a solid 12 on a scale of 1 to 10. Dunst is unattractive, has a goofy grin, and makes about as much sense as Mary Jane as Rhett would playing the Black Cat.
Well,
you would make an awesome Black Cat. Let me just say that right up.
I really would. First of all, her name really isn't Kirsten Dunst.
Oh, there you go.
It's actually Snaggletooth. Second of all, I look really good in tight leather outfits, Chance, so be careful what you wish for.
We're not doing that. No, not even for a promo.
We're doing it now. We're doing it for a promo. I'll dress up in a Black Cat outfit if it means that we get a few extra listeners for episode 100.
Well, Tommy Lee Jones is Two-Face. Well, Tommy Lee Jones is an awesome actor. But
he's really good. And I've seen him in multiple things. I think he was told to act like a
I think he could have pulled off a totally awesome Two-Face.
I think he was... Yeah, I think he was directed.
It's almost like when they were doing Batman... Was that Batman and Robin? Was that one? Or was that the next one? Anyway, whichever one that one was with Jim Carrey.
Yeah, that was Batman. Well, there was Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin was the Jim Carrey one.
That's right.
Batman Forever. And then it was Batman and
George
Robin
Clooney.
with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Anyway, Batman Forever, it was almost like they were going for the 1966 television show. Which is totally dumb for Batman.
Were. Well, that's what they wanted to do. Part of it, there was a big reason for it. Despite the fact that Batman Returns did so well, there was a lot of family backlash. Well, mainly just mothers, I'm assuming. Backlash about how dark number 2 went. So when they went for number 3, they went campy, and they didn't bring in the emo director. What's his name?
Burton.
Yeah, which is why they lost the guy who played Batman, because he wanted to do it with Burton. So they got Schumacher in, who did sort of the campy, 1950s, 60s Batman.
Right.
Sort of like an Adam West.
So anyway, he goes in and he then gives his take on who he would pick for these particular roles. Rogue, he said Victoria Justice or Elizabeth Gillies. The thing is that just looking at them, I don't know how well they would play the role. They look the part, those two anyway.
I think Chance is probably going for just
and then,
on that choice.
Let's see, Sue Storm, Lara Vandervoort. She's hot and blonde.
I have no idea.
Let's see, Storm Gabrielle Union. She's a pretty decent actress. She could do it, I think. Gabrielle Union.
Who is she?
Did you ever see Life?
No.
Anyway, Doom. Any guy who possesses or could at least passably mimic an Eastern European accent.
Not necessarily. You could go... Eastern European isn't super important. He needs to pull off like a highborn sort of thing. Not British. He almost is sort of British where...
looks down the sort of on everyone.
No. The sort of... The British accent where he's really succinct with his pronunciation. Clipped. That way, there's not much or even any of an accent.
The thing is that he needs to be intimidating. And haughty.
He needs to pull off that highborn.
Like, I'm too good for everyone.
Right. That's why you get the highborn accent going.
He's Mary Jane Felicia Day. Just kidding, Rhett. But for real, as MJ, I'd go with either Poppy Montgomery or Ariana Grande. Let's see. Poppy Montgomery. Oh, maybe. No, I think she's too old for the part. Poppy Montgomery, she's a pretty redhead lady. She's, I've seen her in a couple things and been pretty impressed, with her, portrayal. But at the same time, she's 42. So.
The only claim to fame that Felicia Day has, even remotely, is that she's into nerdy stuff, and that's it. She's not good at anything that I've seen her do. I'm already
Ariana Grande, I don't know. She's 21, she could play the part, she looks pretty, but I don't think I could see her in the part.
I think they're going super young with this new Spider-Man.
Let's see. Why is it we have so many Brits as Australians playing American roles? Brits and Australians playing American roles. Margot Robbie is from New Zealand, and she's cast as Harley Quinn. Henry Cavill, Brit,
I heard that.
Playing a boy from Kansas. Andrew Lincoln, Brit, playing a Southerner. Was it Andrew Garfield? Is that the right? He's also a Brit.
Yeah.
And he played Peter Parker.
The guy who played Henry Cavill, who played Superman, is from like Spain or something.
I don't know.
Which was sort of a big deal because they're like, Superman isn't actually American now.
The thing is that if they can...
Well, he's a quintessentially American character, and everybody was surprised they went for a non-American.
The thing with the Brits is, I don't mind them playing Americans, as long as they can realistically portray an American accent. You know what I mean?
I think when they go into acting school, the most important thing that they need to do is learn how to speak with an American accent. So that's one of the first things that they actually do.
Okay, so he went and saw Furious 7. He didn't actually want to see the film, but he wanted to hang out with some friends, so he went.
He posted
guys, not that you'd...
And that did a horrible thing.
Guys, not that you'd expect anything any less, but this movie is a serious check your brain at the door experience. Evidently, Vin Diesel lifted up a car.
You know what my reaction to that was?
Oh, boy.
Vin Diesel lifted up a car to detract from the fact that Paul Walker was confusingly walking around as a dead corpse. Isn't that guy dead? Why is he walking around?
Let's see. While the late Paul Walker crawled under it to remove some part, it was that bad. At the end, there was this big spiel narrated by Vin Diesel about how the Paul Walker character was his brother and always would be blah, blah, blah. Well, Paul Walker died in real life. And I think...
I know that.
I have no idea.
Did
I've
his
never seen
character
Furious
die?
7. I think it was kind of a tribute to Paul Walker. They probably killed him off.
Probably. That show doesn't make any sense. It does.
Well, it's gone on for 7.
Me off.
6 sequels.
Well, look at it this way. Paul Walker was this FBI agent trying to track down these guys who were doing illegal crap.
Right.
Vin Diesel and crew. And he infiltrates their, like, drag racing group. And it's almost like, like a similar movie with, what's his name from The Matrix?
Which one? Oh, you mean, Neo.
Yeah. The only guy anybody needs to talk about who's from The Matrix.
The black dude, Morpheus.
Nobody says
You're
that
right.
when they're talking about what's his name. If I say what's his name from Spider-Man, I'm talking about Spider-Man. Otherwise, I'd say what's his name, the black guy from The Matrix.
Oh, I can't remember. Keanu Reeves.
Anyway, Keanu Reeves was in a movie that was very similar.
It was Point
where
Blank.
He was infiltrating this group, and he was trying to be a surfer.
Point Blank. Point Break.
Point Break. And he was infiltrating the surfer crew and stuff. And it had the same feel, and it had a lot of potential. It wasn't bad. It's just in, like, 2, or at the end of 1, I don't remember, but he, like, joins them. Despite the fact that they're illegally racing and doing crap that's, like, bad. And then he becomes part of their crew to steal money and race cars. And I'm like, this is... They just made it terrible.
I've never seen the whole...
He's like, I just like you guys. My goal was to, stop your nefarious evil plans. But I decided I like you guys because we drank beers together and you're kind of cool.
I've never actually seen Fast and Furious all the way through. Nothing that I've seen of it actually made me want to sit down and finish the movie.
What was, I think it was, American Dad, who actually did a joke about the whole thing, that Fast and Furious, the better it is, the closer to, homosexuality it gets, where they're bros, but they like, it's almost like they're a little too into each other.
Too close as bros?
Yeah, they're almost too close. It's like, yeah, we're really into each other. Let's shower together like we're men, but we're heterosexual.
So anyway, he says,
a whole episode about that.
The email has rambled on long enough, and then he says that, I'm going to chop it down to 2.5 paragraphs, and yeah.
Hey, we talked about it a lot.
So with that in mind, he's closing out. May you never find yourself beset by pitchfork-wielding midgets. Yeah. And said, suck it, hashtag.
To be fair, they have range, and they're
double
low
threat
to the
there.
ground.
Hashtag suck it, Rhett. Hashtag don't wipe with a cactus. Hashtag kill Aunt May till the old hag dies from it. Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah, just a bit.
A little long for a hashtag, though. Don't wipe with a cactus. Really?
Evidently.
Is that necessary to be said? It's like, don't brush your teeth with a rifle.
Well, some people
do
just
we need
don't
to point
know
that
how
out,
to,
or
how to behave
are people doing this?
In the right social environment, you know what I mean?
Are people really brushing their teeth with rifles? Maybe pistols are better?
Use a toothbrush, dang it! It's what the dentist recommends.
Do not use... Gosh, dang it, you guys. There's no substitute for good hygiene. Plus, it's all
there you go.
Even if it doesn't go off.
I was going to pull up a top 10 list, but we'll move on. Well,
sure.
If we're going to get to Bloodborne, which I'd like to do, we won't have time for it. So, we'll save that for another time. But, I did want to ask you something, just take a few more minutes. What is the thing that all dogfight games have in common? No. Not that kind of dogfight.
Dogs?
Well, I was sitting there
What
thinking about it.
then?
Yeah, fighter games. You know, you
so
pick
like
a plane,
fighter
you pick a
games.
fighter, you go at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the thing that they all have in common? Usually a sort of double thing where you can reverse on yourself. Usually they have to have excessive characters to make the ships different. So sometimes they go excessively corny in their characteristics because you're basically all just the same plane. So sometimes
the thing is, I was sitting there thinking about it, and one thing that occurred to me is that every time they make one of these fighter games where you're flying around, dogfighting, and all that stuff, it doesn't matter what setting it's in, you always fly like an airplane. And, I mean, that may seem kind of obvious, but...
Oh, so like you're talking like even if it's a spaceship, y'all... To be fair, though, George Lucas with Star Wars based the fighter movements, like the TIE fighters and X-Wings, like frame for frame from old World War II footage. So literally, they are moving like World War II planes, which is confusing because they're in space. Which makes it more dynamic.
The thing is that if you're actually flying a spaceship, you should be able to pivot on the X, Y, or Z axis.
Well, stuff like aerodynamics...
Which is what Borg Cube makes sense in space.
Like you... Yeah, you could literally be a brick and be the most efficient brick, like the greatest fighter jet ever invented. And you're just outdoing everybody. It's what's inside. A lot of it's propelling yourself in one direction, being able to change directions quickly, I assume. I don't know. We've never really actually had space dogfights.
The thing is that we don't really have a frame of reference for it.
You don't have to. You don't have to keep the engines going in one direction. As soon as you have it going in one direction, you're still going that way. Otherwise, you're perpetually accelerating in a certain direction.
I was sitting there thinking, if you're dogfighting in space,
it'd be hard,
and you're actually modeling this as if you were fighting in space, you could be going in one direction. Somebody comes up from behind you, and you can flip yourself around. And still keep going in that direction, but fire behind you. There's no reason why you couldn't.
Yeah. There's no gravity, assuming you're not very close to the a planet or anything, and there's no air friction, which causes the most.
I mean, you might have to. You could argue that there's still you'd still experience the G forces as you turned. I don't know.
Would you?
I mean, I assume that you would, but that could just be because I'm thinking about this from the perspective of the astronauts. They train them in those simulators. Right.
Well, that's mainly for leaving orbit or re-entering. It's not really.
And so you may not worry about that at all.
Flying around.
And so if you were to build,
you may not.
The thing is, I was thinking about this because I was thinking about the ships from Star Wars: The Old Republic. And then I was sitting there, it just dawned on me. It's like, why do they fly like planes in outer space? That makes no sense. Anyway.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah. So, Bloodborne. Let's talk about Bloodborne.
Okay, Bloodborne's in the same sort of family of Miyazaki. Miyazaki made... Well, From Software's made a lot of games, and Miyazaki's been involved in a lot of games, but it's along the same theme of a few other games, namely Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1.
Demon Souls,
Dark Souls 2, and
correct
now we
me
have
if I'm
Bloodborne.
wrong, is kind of the first in the franchise for the Dark Souls, or is it separate?
No. There is no franchise. Miyazaki doesn't like to make seconds of games.
Okay.
Miyazaki was not involved in Dark Souls 2.
To Bloodborne?
After Dark Souls 1, he moved on to Bloodborne, and other teams in From Software, which he works with, made Dark Souls 2. Demon Souls is a completely different story and different universe and all of that from the Dark Souls universe, just as Bloodborne is different from the Dark Souls universe. So they're all different. Demon Souls has got an interesting sort of similar thing as Bloodborne, where there's there's something wrong with everybody and something's corrupting a lot of mankind, and so we're getting a lot of beasts coming out of people's bodies and that sort of thing. A lot of it has to do with like magic and their relationship with the gods and, well, the church specifically in Demon Souls. Dark Souls, so Chance said that there's almost no story whatsoever. The story in Dark Souls is actually very deep and interesting. So I'm going to sum it up as best I can in a very short rendition of what the story is. They don't tell you. So here's what the story of Dark Souls is. In the beginning, before anything existed, there were... It was basically what you had was gray. There was no life or death. Nothing was born or died. The only things that really existed in this sort of realm were things that were eternal, which were the dragons. They lived forever. Part of the reason why they live forever is apparently because of their scales. Apparently that makes them immortal. And they also had something called crystals or whatever, but apparently they didn't really need them, but it also makes them immortal as well. Anyway, everything lived forever. Like, they had these giant, like, gray trees that were like granite, and it's like life and death didn't exist. It was just sort of a perpetual, I wouldn't say balance, but nothing. And then the first flame was found. And the first flame is sort of like the flame of life. And they found it somewhere, like just deep down somewhere. And something called a husk found it, these different husks. Husks are basically beings without souls. They're just sort of a husk of a nothing. And they found the flames, which gave them souls, because souls are all based off the first flame. And what happened was the first people to find it, the first husks to find it, find the first flame, took like the great souls out of the first flame, and there were like 4 great souls. And the first one was this guy that was this big king. His name starts with a G, but it escapes me. And he took the soul of light, I think. It's fairly irrelevant to this point. There's a guy named Nito. He sort of ended up ruling over the undead. There was the Witch of Izalith, who sort of ruled over flames and that magic and what have you. And the fourth one was one that nobody talks about, who finds the 4th great soul, which is the Dark Soul. And unlike the other great souls, where they have this massive great soul and it makes them powerful, he took his soul and he spread it out amongst all of the husks and created mankind. The Dark Soul is attached to humanity. And humanity spreads out through all of mankind. So as you play, you pick up humanity, and it actually brings back your real self. Which is why humanity is a big deal. But mankind is basically attached to the Dark Soul. Now, you would assume that the Dark Soul's bad and the Light Souls are good. And those who have the Light Souls are the gods, and those who have the Dark Souls are the
if you think about it, we're kind of
necessarily true.
Conditioned to think light good, dark bad.
Well, that's what the gods want you to think as well, but what you start to realize is that the gods are sort of petty about the whole thing. Well, they worry about humanity because they think that Gwyn is actually the king's name. I just remember his name.
Right.
The guy that's got the big fancy soul in the beginning. He's worried about humanity.
Right.
He thinks they're actually going to cause a lot of problems because of the dark soul. So he convinces them to that they're gods. Are they really gods? You know what I mean? They're big, powerful, but in terms of actually being gods, they live forever, if that answers you, but they can be killed. And in the beginning, they found their souls, but they were still sort of suppressed by these eternal dragons. Now, there's this dragon called Seath, and he's a bit butthurt about the whole thing because he's called Seath the Scaleless. He's upset because he doesn't have scales, and he will die. And the dragons are eternal and live forever, so it's kind of a big problem for him. And he wants to be able to live forever. So apparently he doesn't like the dragons because of this, or at least everybody else, because he wants to figure out a way to live forever, and he can't. So he goes to Gwyn, and he goes, hey, this is how you kill the dragons. They're really vulnerable to lightning. So Gwyn musters his soul and his army, and they basically just wipe the dragons out. They're pretty much all gone. Almost completely, right? And the gods and humanity sort of inherit the earth from the dragons, and life and stuff flourishes and whatnot. Because the first flame sort of spreads out. Now, the problem with the first flame is that it's sort of cyclical. And what I mean by that is it's a problem. Eventually, the first flame will start to die. And that's a big issue, because as the first flame starts to die, people start to lose their humanity, and this thing that's called the dark sign starts to show up on people. And what it is, it's like this little black circle on their bodies. I think in Dark Souls 1, it was on the shoulder. If you actually make your guy naked, you can see it. And it starts to slowly eat away at you, and you start to lose your humanity and who you are, and you become a husk again, which is basically nothing without a soul. And the fire starts to burn out. This is a problem for humanity as well for the gods. And the gods aren't happy about it, and the gods are doing everything possible to try and keep the souls burning. And we're talking like a period of 10,000 years. Now, unlike what they think is going on, the first flame doesn't ever actually disappear. There's always going to be a flame, however small, and there's always going to be a sort of rise and decline of the flame. It'll grow and it'll fade, and this is a very Asian concept of sort of like a cyclical life. No matter what you do, eventually the dark soul, not the dark soul, but the flame will start to die, and then after a period of time, it'll burn up again, and then life will flourish again, sort of thing. So Gwyn gets all pissy about it, and he's like, I don't want this to happen, because if this happens, potentially the dark soul will start to spread more. And he doesn't want the Dark Soul to unite and there to be a sole Dark Lord, because it's sort of spread out through mankind. And he thinks that's going to be a big problem, and he doesn't trust humanity, so he figures out and he created this whole church for everybody to worship him as a god, and he created this whole thing about how humanity is sinful and all of these other things. But in reality, it's just sort of his fabrication to suppress mankind. Is he good or evil? It's neither here nor there. He wanted the first flame to stay burning to keep the cycle of life going. So he takes his soul and he burns it, his great soul, and he burns it in the first flame to try and reignite it, to keep it going.
Of course not.
It doesn't freaking work. And it brings down the world of the gods, and it is crap. Like he had kids and stuff, and like all the power that sort of centered around the gods and kept stuff going all starts to fall apart. he had some kids. There's this whole story about he has his daughter named Guinevere, and she's sort of this big deal, and you run into her, and she's sort of still keeping stuff going in the City of the Gods, which is called Anne Orlando. The problem is, she left. She's not there anymore, and you find that out later because if you can play the whole game and not know that she's actually a fabrication. But if you shoot at her, she'll disappear. And you find out that is one of Gwen's sons. Here's a weird story. Not Guinevere.
Of course she is.
Gwendolyn
She is.
Is a dude. He was so feminine that Gwen raised him like a girl. Part of because Gwendolyn's really good with like moon magic or something. Apparently that's considered feminine. So he raised him as a girl despite the fact he's a dude.
You'd think so.
Screwed Gwendolyn up. See, he's all like gender confused. But Gwendolyn is actually the only guy still around in the City of the Gods, and he created the illusion of his sister. And he's actually the one that created the illusion of the sun, because it's attached to, like, the soul of light and stuff, just to make it so it looks like things are still burning, and everything's still going. If you kill Gwendolyn, the sun goes out. Like, it disappears. It just gets dark outside. Like, the game is fascinating. And so the whole goal that you have is you get set on this quest, and you gather up all the souls in Dark Souls, and you put them together, and you can choose to reignite the flame by putting all of the great souls together as opposed to just Lord Gwyn's soul, and reignite the flame, and reignite the cycle of life, and that sort of thing. Or you can say, you know what, screw it, and let everything fade, and then eventually everything will build up again. It's not like it's a really good or bad decision, because eventually the cycle will come around again. The story is very fascinating. You don't find these things out, and this will actually help Chance out. Come Dark Souls 2, however thousands of years in the future, the story comes around again, and it's another cycle of life, but everything's starting to burn out once again. And it's like everybody's trying to deal with the same problem. They don't know how to stop it from happening.
It's been so long since it happened, and nobody remembers, right? Yeah, very few do, and very little bits of information actually exists from what had happened and that sort of thing. And there are a few people in Dark Souls 2 that make this huge effort to try and... how we should say, like, do experiments and solve the problem, but no matter what they do, they just can't actually solve the problem. And this main king in Dark Souls 2 makes this huge effort to try and fix it, and there's nothing that he can do to fix it. I mean, there's a thing that happened in Dark Souls 1. One thing to do is, because it started fading, the Witch of Izalith, who was one of the other people who got a great soul, she decided she wanted to create another First Flame because she knows all this magic and stuff, and she's like the originator of magic and fire magic and whatnot. So she tries to create another First Flame, and clearly it doesn't work out. Like, it goes so badly that she creates demons that never existed before. So now the world is like flooded with demons and hellspawn. Because she tried to recreate a First Flame. And in 2, I know, right? And in 2, the whole story is your guy is trying to find a way to stop what's happening to him. And through it, he discovers, he goes through everything. And the reason why Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2 work so well is because you're fighting what are essentially people who lost their souls from the dark sign and eventually lost everything. And it's sort of a depressing thing. They make a big emphasis in Dark Souls 2 about how over time you start to lose yourself and lose your mind. And it slowly you start to lose your memory and things sort of like leave you. And in the trailer for Dark Souls 2, it shows you and like your you can't
family
remember
and then, like,
what she looked like anymore.
Like you're losing her. Yeah, you can't hold on to anything. In Dark Souls 2, they introduced the concept of the more time you if you have an obsession, something to keep you focused, everything you can actually stay together. You don't hollow out. It's when you start to lose stuff and start to be more casual about things, then you start to lose your soul. So you have to have something you're working towards. You have to have something that you're obsessed about. And a lot of the characters, there's this character in Dark Souls 2 where he's a merchant, right? And he's super desperate because he's not selling anything,
right?
And he has no money, and you trade souls because money doesn't mean anything at this point. And you collect souls from the dead husks as you go through and kill things, and you can use them to strengthen yourself. You can collect huge amounts of souls and just be super powerful, much like the gods were. But this guy is super desperate to sell stuff, so if you buy stuff from him, like at certain increments, after spending like 10,000 souls on him, he starts to be a little bit more confident. Like, I'm doing well, this, and this. And after so many purchases from him and spending so many souls, life is going really well for him. He's no longer desperate, and he's losing his mind. Which is curious, because he's now starting to lose his memory. You've been buying from him forever, and he stops remembering who you are. So it was almost bad for him to start to be successful, because he needs something to obsess about. Yeah, you run into characters who are obsessed about adventuring and that sort of thing. At any rate, in Bloodborne, the story is you're an outsider, and there's this town that sort of created this way for blood to be used as a cure. And it happens to... It has something to do... And this is the story so far that I understand. It has something to do with this place, this sort of like keep or castle out there. And they found a way, like deep down, how to use blood itself to cure some of the worst and most terrible diseases. And not only that, they use blood to strengthen themselves, make them stronger and faster and what have you. Now here's the problem, and this is the city of Yharnam. It's a very old style, like Gothic Renaissance sort of thing. Now the problem is, it starts getting out of control, and the blood that they use and sort of because there's this whole church based around like the healing blood or whatever they call it, and whatever they're doing, whatever the church is doing, whatever it is that they discovered, over time, eventually it starts to just mess you up, and it has something to do with corrupt blood, and it has something to do with certain things that they're doing that they don't understand, or it's affecting people in different ways, and it starts to turn people into beasts. And they call it, part of it's like a plague that's spreading throughout the city and a bunch of other things. And so every now and then there's a hunt at night as the beasts go too far. There's too many, and it's too much of a problem. And that's called the Night of the Hunt. And essentially you're this outsider that shows up, and you assume that maybe you were there for a cure, maybe you were there for something, but you get transformed into a hunter. So you're faster than normal, you're stronger than normal, you can do more than the average person. And as a hunter, you go out on the night of the hunt to sort of wipe the city of these creatures. But no, whatever happens to you, whenever you run into other hunters, they say it's only a matter of time before you become a beast. So it's almost like this ticking clock of the farther I go, the more I'm doing whatever, maybe I'm trying to find a cure, but eventually
it's going to make
whatever
me
they
into
did to me to make me a hunter,
what I'm hunting.
It's going to go south. Right. You're going to become a beast of some kind, and people are just mad in this city. A lot of the people, there's a lot of dialogue and stuff that you can get involved in just by approaching like buildings with and doors and knocking on it and talking to people.
You knock on the door and talk to them through the door or something?
Just hiding away until the whole thing blows over. Yeah. You instead of souls that you spend to strengthen your body, you actually spend blood that strengthens whatever you've been doing to yourself. So you collect blood and you collect what they're called blood echoes or something like that. So the whole thing's based around blood or whatever screwy thing that the church was doing. This is basically the story I understand so far. And essentially you're on this big long night of the hunt. And you're going around trying to get to the church to find answers and that sort of thing. This is all story that you get between things. And that's how Miyazaki prefers it. He doesn't want to tell you the story outright. You sort of learn it through reading letters you pick up, through reading item descriptions, through talking to characters, and you piece everything together to actually get the actual story. And that's what it happens with Dark Souls, is they don't actually just tell you the story. Now, in the first Dark Souls, it's very defensive, sort of a passive game. You step out to the outside, you block with your shield, and that's one of the best ways to play the game. I mean, you can get better with doing a lot of rolling and stuff. But it's very sort of defensive. You wait, and then you counter. You block and you counter. You step out to the side. You do those sorts of things. You turtle up, or you sword and board, or you do whatever you have to. Shields in that game...
Right.
Shields don't exist in Bloodborne, and it's a lot more aggressive game. You have to be very aggressive to actually be any successful. And Jason's played Dark Souls, so he understands how the mechanics work. So in Bloodborne, you roll and you dash much, much faster. So when you lock onto someone and you hit your dash, you move really far. So it's a lot of dashing and moving around other guys and rolling around other guys to avoid their strikes so that you can move in and hit. If you take damage, you sort of how you'll take damage, but then like you'll have like my health bar is red, but it'll be like a light red underneath as I take damage. That light red will actually fade away after a few seconds. But if I can hit the guy, I actually get my bar back up as long as there's a light red to fill. So if I take damage, doing damage actually heals me. So it actually forces you to be somewhat aggressive. As you're fighting, if you're taking
don't want to
damage,
run away.
You actually want to keep going to keep yourself healed. A lot of it's just really aggressive, in-your-face sort of combat. It's so different from Dark Souls. I was playing Dark Souls 2, and then when I got Bloodborne, I was sitting here playing it, and I was like, playing Dark Souls made me worse at Bloodborne. I had to rethink how to play. Is the game very much still reminiscent of the other Dark Souls games, of the Dark Souls games and Demon Souls? Very much so. In theme, in how dark and sort of moody it is and depressing it is. How difficult it is. It's still freaking hard. Dark Souls is still hard. And it's the same sort of theme where you have a place you start out, and you go out and you kill things, and if you die, you have to go back to the checkpoint and go through everything again.
Right.
It's about learning from dying and trying to get better. It's not... Dark Souls is very rewarding combat. As you get better at it, it's very rewarding because you feel like the mistakes you make are yours. As opposed to when you play a game, it's like the game cheats and you die. It's like you might be playing something and you die and you're like, well, I just died.
Right.
Whereas in Dark Souls, you get a distinct feeling of, well, I just died.
And you sit there and you think, okay, what can I do next
sort of
time
to
avoid that dude?
Bloodborne's the same way. Well, yeah, and like Miyazaki games, they do stuff to screw with you. One of the classic moments, as Jason will recall, that Chance keeps complaining to me about, is he's like, I keep trying to cross this bridge, and these guys keep hitting me with explosive bottles or whatever, and I keep dying, and I was like, Chance,
yeah, you just run.
They're there
you just
to
run and get
screw
behind
with
them,
you.
and then you kill them from
Run
behind.
past the bridge. Yeah, he's like, I don't know. I was like, dude, they literally do that to screw with you. In Bloodborne, I'll be walking down like a street, and they'll stick guys frequently just around corners.
Right.
So that as you walk past the corner, the guy goes, bah, right away, like he's just waiting for you. Like his only job in the world was to hold his sword up and wait for you to walk past so he could hit you in the head with it. So you get really cautious, you get really trigger happy. They do goofy stuff like that. Like, you'll be walking down a place and guys will jump out from above. And you just have to keep your eyes open to see where they are and where they're standing. It's very much that sort of game. Characters get clever in Bloodborne. There's a moment where there's these beasts in the old part of the city that I've been fighting. And they have this weird sort of steam coming up, I assume from the sewers through cracks in the street. And the big piles of steam coming up. So I'm fighting these little beasts and stuff, and I walk down the stairs, and there's this beast, and he runs back into the steam and then stands in it. So I can't see where he is or what he's doing. And he's just standing there waiting for me to get close enough for him to jump out at me. I was like, you piece of crap. I mean, this is what they do. They do stuff on purpose to screw with you. It's meant to make it difficult. The game, what makes up for it is a very tight combat system, where if you get better, it gets easier. I beat Dark Souls 1. I'm well into Dark Souls 2. I fully expect it to be very, very possible to beat Bloodborne, despite the fact that it's difficult. I've beaten a few bosses that were weirdly difficult. I beat what is considered, what I read online is to be one of the hardest bosses in Bloodborne, a few days ago. And man, I probably died against him some 10 times until I figured out sort of how to beat him. But it wasn't so much watch his patterns. He's just hard. Like, he moves like you, he reacts like you. It's like, oh, so he has certain attacks. He goes 1, 2, and then that's it. And then you go up and you're like, okay, so he goes 1, 2, and then you step out and he goes 3, and then he hits you and you're like, oh, come on. He'll swing. Here's one thing. He'll swing at you. You'll step back to avoid it. Then you'll move in to hit him, and then he'll shoot you with his gun. It's like they do stuff knowing that you're going to try and dodge, that you're going to try and avoid him, and that sort of thing. Enemies are clever. Bloodborne is a very good game. Is it for everybody? No. It's actually very creepy. Like, playing it in the middle of the night will creep you out. Noises and, like, wailing and stuff. Like, whatever they turn into, they don't seem happy about it. But it's very, very fun and very rewarding as you get better. The game is, the atmosphere too is so good. It's just really good. I might have to drag Jason over just so he could play it sometime. And he can, play it out. But, just to get a feel of it, Dark Souls is very good. And I hope Chance realizes that there's more depth to these games that they
he didn't.
Before. It took
what
me
he
a
said
long
was
time
it was like
to penetrate
Tolkien
the first Dark Souls
with very difficult bosses.
Dying.
So he recognized that there was depth to it.
Yeah. I think you had a similar experience with the first Dark Souls. There was a lot of effort just to get through the first few areas because it was hard to sort of learn the combat.
I need to get back to it because I was at the cathedral where you have to kill the two gargoyles.
Actually, there's more than 2. There's like 3 or 4. The problem with that part is after you kill one, another comes up. And then you kill another, and then I think at max at any one point there'll be 3, but eventually you can finish them off. No, it's rough. And I told you specifically, if you want to hit the cathedral, I can figure out a way to set up my sign so I can join you and help you beat it. But I have beaten the cathedral itself. It's just, it's hard. Dark Souls 2 has a fight that's almost exactly like that fight, where you're on top of a church and a bunch of these gargoyles come out. It's just difficult. And, have you got to the point where you've done enough damage where they start blowing fire at you? Yeah. See, that's what gets goofy too. You start.
The thing is that I chopped off the one dude's tail and got the axe, and I can get him down, so he's almost dead. The problem is that then the second gargoyle comes up and starts trying to kill you from behind and blowing fire everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
you need a summon.
We better move on. We're getting overtime here. So in our tournament, we're getting down to the final championship match. We have Mad Max versus Judge Dredd tonight. Now, Mad Max is one of those unpredictable scrapper type fighters. He takes a lot of damage, but he keeps going. And he'll come at you from different directions, you know. If something's not working for him, he doesn't keep plugging away at it, trying to figure it out. He tries something new. And usually it's something weird.
Well, there's a really good line from the new trailer that came out for Mad Max. And he specifically says, I'm starting to think whether or not I'm starting to wonder whether or not everybody's just mad or if it's just me. And I'm like, he has a point. It's just when crap hits the fan, everybody just starts to go crazy.
And then
Max
let's
is one
see.
of them, and he just does
Judge
crazy
Dredd.
things.
Judge Dredd is tough. He has to be.
He is built to not only run a city, but to judge a city.
Yeah,
and to deal with like roving gangs constantly. Like he deals with entire city blocks worth of gangs.
Very straightforward.
All the time.
And he's not really. Well, I'm trying to think of what I'm going for here. He sees his target and he knows what he wants to do. He doesn't spend a lot of time trying to figure things out. It's just he makes a decision.
Oh yeah, that's true. He fixes problems basically deliberate. There's no sort of skirting around or second guessing. It's almost like the karate approach to life. Karate originally, instead of doing a lot of superfluous sort of kung fu stuff, it's basically run forward and hit the guy. And that's sort of Judge Dredd's thing. He doesn't. It's like if there's a gang causing a problem, he'll basically go in and kill the gang and its leader and then walk away. It's not like, well, we need to do some groundwork and get rid of their drugs, or no. He just if somebody's selling drugs, he goes finds the guy that sells the drugs and he shoots him in the head. That's all he needs to do, and that's the benefit of being a judge. You don't actually have to be like, "Is this legal?" Yes, it is.
That I think is one of the main reasons he's particularly equipped and able to deal with someone like Mad Max. Yeah,
he deals with basically the crazies a lot. And I would say he actually, if anybody, can deal with Mad Max fairly well. It's not, I don't think it would be... he deals with drugged up gang members constantly. I don't think this is going to be an issue for Judge Dredd. Unfortunately, as good as Mad Max is, his unpredictability is something Judge Dredd deals with on a constant basis. Like, that's his job, is to deal with the unpredictable. Which is why he doesn't skirt around the bush and give them a chance to be unpredictable. He simply shoots them in the head and walks away.
Yeah, he
finishes it. He doesn't give them the opportunity to play to their strengths or anything.
He can't.
And he is clever. He can fix problems outside of the box.
Exactly. And like we said,
he
knows
this
exactly
is what he's
kind of going downhill for Mad Max here, I think.
Yeah, I would say, unfortunately, Judge Dredd's the guy to win this one. As far as Mad Max has gone through these fights, Judge
Dredd moves on to the next round. He will be in the championship where he faces John McClane. Yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. So let us know what you think.
Ew.
Judge Dredd, John McClane. Give us reasons. Don't just say, I like Judge Dredd, so he's going to beat John McClane. Tell us why. Yeah.
I mean, it's like, if I were to pick somebody who's my favorite, it might have been like Indiana Jones at some point. And he'd have made it all the way to the end. We're talking about, you gotta have legit reasons. There's no way Doctor Strange would have made it this far in that last
anything
bracket
else you want to say before we sign off?
Freaking...
Yep.
Nope.
And don't do anything
stick
lethally
with
stupid,
Dark Souls
people.
Chance. It'll pay off in the end.
Later.
I guarantee it. Yeah, we'll see you guys later.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Distracted Gamers podcast. If you like the show, follow Rhett and Jason, the world's two most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter @DG Podcast, or check them out at www.thedistractedgamers.com. If you loved or hated what you've heard here, email them at thedistractedgamers.blogspot.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason will care, since he hasn't any, of course.